Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Insights at DDLynn Designs, a unique twist in the ancient art of wire. So, by special request, I had a lady ask me if I would wrap sea glass, and I've done it in many different ways. And today I'll be doing it with half round wire. And I've cut myself 4 pieces of 20 gauge wire. And I've also outlined my stone. So here you can see, it's in pencil, so you're probably not going to see it very well, but it's not most important. This is my front, and this is my back. And I'm thinking about adding a little tiny, just a very delicate apatite. And if you haven't seen apatite beads before, they're very, very fragile. They're super soft on the Mohs scale. So the Mohs scale determines the hardness of a stone. And this is probably about a 3, if not less. They break and crack really easily. So you don't want to do a lot of pulling if you're working with a very tiny little bead. So before we get started, I need to sit down. I'm hoping to really work on staying in focus. Please, if you would, hit that bell so you know when my next tutorials are coming out next. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to my channel, and your comments and feedback are really important. So please let me know if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to get back with you. So as I mentioned, I've measured my stone. This stone measures 30 millimeters from top to bottom, and approximately 20.8 millimeters at its widest point. In comparison to inches, this is about 1 1/4. This is genuine sea glass. I got this from a gal out of Maine. There's a lot of fake stuff out there where they're just cracking glass from China and tumbling it, but this is right off the beaches of Maine, and really good sea glass is very hard to come by. This is what's known as the aqua. Anyways, it's a really beautiful piece, so I'm looking forward to wrapping it for you. And the back is kind of concaved, so it dips down. So normally I like to wrap my sea glass by weaving the entire piece and wrapping it around it. But because I'm using sterling, it's cost prohibitive to use that much weaving wire, which would probably take about 8 feet, if not more. At 52 cents a foot, it adds up very, very quickly. So I'm going to be doing this with a half round wire today. So what I've done is I've found my center point here, and I'm going to be weaving or wrapping my half round 24 gauge wire to these marks. I'll be making adjustments as I go. So you're going to need to measure your stone, because what we're going to do is when I reach these outside edges, I'm going to be bending up this wire because it's going to be used to go over the stone on front and back. And you'll see that as we get going. So let's get going. And just a quick note, I take my time a lot for newbies and beginners, so I'm very detail oriented. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut myself a couple of inches, and I want to make sure I'm in camera. I can see that I'm moving away a little bit, so I got to see where my hands are. This is not easy. So I'm going to cut myself about 2 inches of 24 gauge half round. If you haven't worked with sterling wire, I will tell you this. It hardens very, very quickly. It's extremely springy. And it's not very forgiving once you start work hardening it. So I've used 22 gauge half round, and my latest go-to is 24 because it's a lot easier to manipulate. It feels much like a 22, sorry about the hand there, feels much like a 22 half round copper. So I'm just going to make myself a little bend. Actually, I want to come this way. Am I staying in frame? I can't see over my camera, you guys, so I'm hoping I am. And I'm going to start wrapping this. And there's many ways to use half round. Some people like to crimp each time they make a rotation, which is what I'm going to do on this. And I just rocked my wire there. What you don't want, and excuse my arm, I want to use a soft jaw plier so it doesn't really ding into my half round very much. What you don't want is it to bow. And because this is sterling, I'm going to be using as much of that wire that I can. Now, some people like to roll the wire, which means, and this is for beginners if you haven't used half round, it's not the easiest wire to learn. So you're just going to twist your piece. And if you noticed, I've taped my piece. And then I'm going to slide it down. And every so many rotations, I would say, oh, maybe 4. So let's get this slid down. And I might just have exactly the right amount of wire I'm going to need. You might just want to crimp it down. As the wire gets shorter, it's easier to rotate. So I'm twisting the wire in the opposite direction and I'm holding firmly and very, very close. Let me stand up and see if you can see this, to my frame. So I'm just turning it and working really close to my frame. So I'm going to slide this down. And I think that should be good, I hope. Really squeezing down on that wire in the back and just lining up and pushing my wires together. So now I'm going to turn them over. I'm going to lift up on this wire, and I don't cover the whole length. I don't want it to lift up, so I tend to go, depending on how many core wires I have, a little less than halfway. And then I'm going to rock and slide off of it. I really want to cinch that down because it's going to be wrapping around that stone. So I'm just going to lift up on it. And I'm really sliding that down into my piece. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start setting up where I'm going to be taking my tape off to. And I'm going to stand up to see if you can see this. So this is where it's going to sit on the bottom, and that's the perfect amount. So you can see my pink shorts there and my blue top. So this is where it's going to go. So I'm going to take this side of the tape off first. And I'm really hoping that this is focusing. I said full screen. You guys, I'm so sorry. It's just so... I play with my camera all the time. What I'm doing here is I'm separating my wires out. My top wire and my bottom wire. And I'm going to make... excuse me, I'm got a little bit of a cold. I went camping up in Durango. It was absolutely beautiful, Colorado, and we did what's called the Switzerland of the United States drive, and you really do feel like you're in the Alps. It's quite beautiful. So I'm just going to separate those out because I'm going to start setting myself up to see where I want to bend this wire, because I'm going to have to make like a V out of that wire so it goes over the stone. So you kind of got to eye things and figure that out. They're going to be different heights on each side. So I'm going to bend this down. And before I make it flush with my piece, meaning flush with the core wires, I kind of want to see how this is going to set up on here. So that looks good. That looks like a good amount of length that I can use. So I'm going to go ahead and come up underneath it. So I'm turning it away from me. This is the top. And I'm going to come very close here. So I'm right near my core wires and holding the wire that I want to straighten out so that it's flush with the remaining wires again. So you can kind of see where I'm going. What I'm doing is I'm making a, oh my God, I forgot the name. It goes around diamonds and It's the little, oh my gosh, I can't remember. It's the little claws that hold our stones in. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. So now I'm going to turn it around and see how much I need in the back. And I'm thinking I'll probably use about the same. So I'm just going to, I'm standing up, you guys, because I want to make sure you can see this. Just going to bend my wire down. I'm always going to cross over. Kind of got a weird, I'm just going to correct that. I came off on a weird angle. So if that happens, just straighten up your wire by just coming in on the wire and just make your correction. And then swing it down. There we go. Then I'm just turning it around in my best working position. And I'm going to straighten it out. Because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be wrapping those again. So I'm going to wrap this side. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, but I'm going to check my stone. So this is my bottom, and these two are going to sit here. So you can see where I'm going. I'm going to be bending them over each side of the stone, and that's going to capture it. It's going to be a beautiful piece when it's done. So let's go ahead and wrap these. And if you need to, go ahead and tape your wires. Have some extra tape ready on your lamp. And this is for beginners. If you're new to my channel, when you buy tape, you want to make sure that you ask for a low residue. This actually is a very low residue masking tape, and it's less residue than painter's tape. My painter's tape will often stick. So I'm just cleaning up those wires. And again, I'm going to cut myself about 2 inches this time. I think last time I cut, I don't need a whole lot. I cut, I think it was 3 for the center. And I might need a little bit more than that. I just took a look at that. I can always use this wire for something else. So let's see what we got going here. You want your, again, for beginners, you want your flat side to go against your wires. You don't want it on top. This is the dome side, this is the flat side. And it's very hard to see it in silver. So there's the flat, and this has got a little bit of a dome on it. That's why they call it half round, because they cut the wire in half. So I want to start this way. I'm just going to, because it's such a tiny piece of wire, I'm just going to hold that wire down in the back. Oh, now I'll have enough. Good. And I'm just going to bring it around. And I'm going to crimp it down. And bring it around. Crimp it down. And I'm doing each one on this because it's such a short piece of wire. I want to make sure that I don't have any slack. I wanted to get 4 wraps, so the 2 inches was just perfect. So if you need to know how much wire to cut, whether you're using copper or silver, 2 inches worked out with just a little bit of excess. I'm going to slide that up. Then I'm rocking that wire to cut it. Want it nice and tight up against my frame. Let's see where it's sitting in the front. So we've got our first wraps on this side where we're going to set this on the stone. So now I'm going to take this, because remember, this is my center. I'm going to take this and I'm going to center it up, and all I'm going to do, and it's kind of hard to do, but I'm going to push my wires over. I want to see how they're lining up, and they're lining up good, because these are going to bend over that stone. So you see how this is going to go over? That's how we're going to capture the stone. So now I'm going to take my tape off this side. This tape comes off pretty good. I'm going to put my little appetite over here on my lamp. And I'm hoping we're getting some decent lighting. And I'm going to set this here, and now I'm thinking about where I want to do my next bend. So to help myself along, I'm just going to bend this. I need to slide that down a little bit around my stone. And I'm thinking about where I want to set, I can't remember the name of that. It's very specific for setting faceted gemstones. The little tiny, I can't think of the name of it. That's just crazy. Okay, so I'm going to separate these two out. And I might bring in my wraps first. Let me see before I do that. Actually, I'm not. I'm just ad-libbing as I'm going, you guys. I do everything freestyle. I can't draw worth a dang. So I am going to clean up these wires and pull these out. Set my stone back in there. Yeah, I actually am going to be happy with that. So now I'm going to do the same thing as before. And I'm just eyeing how much I'm going to need to go over my stone. So let me just do this to make it easier for you guys to see. I got too many things in my hand. So this is going to rock up. That you want to keep your flat side up. So I know where I want to go now. And I'm going to go in this direction. This is my best working position. And that's going to be great. Can you see where we're going with this? So now I'm going to straighten out my wire so that it's flush or in line with my core wires. Okay. And now I'm going to do the other side, and I need to look at the back of this stone to see how much I'm going to need over there. Because these two wires are going to ride along the edge of your stone. So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to probably maybe do about the same length, or maybe a little bit less. So I got that. And then to get in my best working position, I'm going to turn my wire so that I can see what the heck I'm doing. And I'm just going to rock it in. Straighten my wires out. So here's what we got. So that's going to work just fine. So you can see how we're going to be capturing this stone. Okay, so let's get myself another 2 inches of 24 gauge half round, because that worked out pretty perfect. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Actually, yeah, I want to go this way. See, because I've shaped my wires now, my hands are going to get in the way a little bit. Or the wire, I should say, is in the way. But I do that because for me, and you can do it all at once and then set it by measuring your entire stone and exactly where you want to bend your wires. I just do it by eye. Looks like I cut myself a little bit more than 2 inches, and that, in my humble opinion, is waste. And I don't like to waste sterling. It's not a wire you want to practice on, believe you me. If you're thinking about doing something in sterling, do it in copper first, please. And save every little bit of scrap you have, because you can sell it. They're not going to give you what you paid for it at $44 an ounce. And its silver's gone up significantly lately, so I'm not buying anymore. I'm just going to use what I have. When, as I mentioned earlier, when you weave with silver, you really start bringing up your cost into that piece. It's not like, and this is no disrespect, but it's not like a silversmith that's just taking one piece of silver that's maybe 22 gauge thick, and it's just a flat wire where they're encasing a cabochon. It really becomes very, very expensive weaving with the silver wire, and I weave with 26 gauge a lot, because I'll show you a piece that I'm working on, and I have 40 feet of sterling silver wire into this already. It's going to be a bracelet, and that's a double terminated crystal with a little hitchhiker here on top. And I'm setting with tourmalines. It's very freestyle, and it's going to sit right here. I wish the lighting was better, you guys, but it's not. So anyways, I got a ton of weaving wire in this, and I'm not even done. I've got a good 12-inch tail right here. I'm going to be adding more wire here. By the time I'm done, I'm probably going to have a total of 70 feet of wire in this, believe it or not. So anyways, I thought I'd share that with you. So let me get my scrap. And if you're curious what I do with it, this is just a little storage dish. And I take every little tiny piece, I don't care how big it is, and it goes into my little scrap box. That copper doesn't belong in there. Okay, so let's keep going. So now I'm going to pre-shape my stone, and you can see why I set myself up, because if you start shaping it, it'll make it a lot easier. And I'm just squeezing the outside wires a little bit. And then I'm just going to bring my wire up, and I'm going to start following the stone. And this is where I'm going to be putting my next little V-shaped bends to capture in this little dip right here. And you may want to tape your stone. You can at this point. It's up to you. And I'm just coming into this here, and I'm getting an idea. And you see how this is capturing the stone now? And of course, I've got to do some adjusting and bending, but this is just giving you an idea of where we're going to go. So here's my back, which could be your front, by the way. There is no golden rule in my book. And I'm just kind of massaging the wire a little bit. And if you have to and you need more wire to go over the back or the front, this is your opportunity to pull more out. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, I need a little bit more over that stone. So I'm just coming in and pushing that wire up, and it's dragging through where I have it wrapped because I want more over the back of that stone. This is good here. So that looks good to me. The front looks great. I'm going to slide these wires up a little bit. There's no symmetry to this stone, so you have to go with the natural shapes and curves in it. And I'm going to slide that up a little bit. So you want to make your corrections before you start bending any more wire. And I'm thinking I'm going to slide this one up too. Now, here's a cool little thing to know and I don't know if you can see this. When we're manipulating our wires and pulling more wire out, your half round will have a tendency to lift up where you cinched it back down. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that as you're going, so you don't have any lifted wire. But that's just a characteristic of the wire, the half round wire. And I'm going to slide this one up a little bit. And I'm going to put my stone back in there. Was that my bottom? This was my top. Or was it the other way? I think it was the other way. I'm getting myself confused. There we go. See how it nestled right in there? I'm standing up again, gang, so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to mark my wire this time. Where's my felt pen? Just give me a second here. And this is really good tips, you guys. Always look for technique. I promise you it will accelerate your journey in this magical ancient art of wire. So I know that I want my next bends to be where this little dip is in my stone. Let's get this paper out of here. I think that's causing a distraction. You see this little dip right here? So I'm going to set this down. And I'm going to push my stone down in there. I'm just going to swing these out of my way a little bit. And I need this wire here. I'm going to need to get my pliers. And I'm swinging it up on the stone. So my bend point is going to be right here. That's where I want to bend my wire back. I don't know if you can see that because my felt pen is pretty dried out. So let me see if I can pick this up and show you. So let's get this back in here. It's much better on the board because I have more stability. Okay. My stone is rocking a little bit. Okay. Can you see that little mark? And that actually looks a little low, and I just noticed. Hold on a minute, you guys, dropped my stone. So I had to stop for a minute and find my stone, and you always want to check your work. My stone wasn't sitting in there exactly right, so I'm going to make some adjustments here. So I'm going to want this to bend right here. So I need to come up a little bit higher. So now I'm going to bend this up a little bit here. And then I'm going to bend it down. I'm coming up above the mark. This is just telling me where I wanted to bend it. And now I'm going to swing that wire down. And I'm going to cross over. Now I want to put my stone back in because I want to see where this is setting. That's good. See how I'm pulling this over the shoulder right here in this corner? Kind of pushing it in. So I'm liking where that's lining up. So now I'm going to bend my wire. I'm just going to hug it in a little bit so that it's flush or perpendicular to my other wires, my core wires. So let's see what we got going here. That's good. I like that. And it's going to look great once it's oxidized. So now I'm going to turn it around. And I'm actually just going to use my finger this time. I'm going to lift this wire up. Sometimes I find my fingers do the absolute best on helping me get my wire where I want it to go. And so now I really want this to go over the surface of the back. So I'm going to mark it right here because that's where I'm going to bend it. I'm going to take this out. And I'm going to bend it down. And I kind of need to straighten this out just a little bit temporarily. Let's just see what's going on here. So that's going to work out great. And it's covering a good portion of the back of the stone. So let's go ahead and straighten this out. And then we're going to wrap it. So again, to make your life easy, I would recommend that you have tape handy so that you can keep your wires together. This needs to be folded in a little bit. Now you could at this point, if you don't want to use half round, you could be securing all your wires together with weaving wire. But I wanted to use some half round this time. And I'm going to need to check all my little half rounds as I'm manipulating this wire to see what's come up. And I can see that came up here a little bit. It's doing good in the center. Okay, so I'm going to sit back down so I can get wrapping. I'm going to straighten these out a little bit. Just trying to find my easiest working position. And since it's such a short piece of wire, I'm really tugging down on that. And I'm using my thumb just to push it up and underneath. And if I can get away with 5 wraps on this one, I think that's what I'm going to do. But I don't think I have enough wire on this side. But I think I do. Maybe. Nope, I don't. So it's going to be 4 wraps. So I'm going to slide that up. I think that's my back. Yep. And if you have to, and you're just starting to do this, starting out, always mark your front and back, meaning mark which side, you know, if this is your front. So I know this is my front. I can put a marker here. But your stone will pretty much tell you that anyways. Really want to make sure this is cinched in there. That's still too long for my taste. Okay. And I'm going to rock this. I want to cinch these all down good and tight. And that's still too far down. I don't want it hitting that little gap space. Okay, we're moving right along. Let me get my scrap here. This is what I mean. I don't even know if you can see these itty bitty 1 millimeter pieces of silver, but it all adds up. It's amazing. All right, let's see what we got going. So I think that's my front. It is. That's perfect. So you see how we're moving along? And then when we get to the bell, we're gonna go ahead and start really crimping these down on the front and the back. So now I want my other one to go right here. So that's where I want it, just the V to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and hold this very firmly. And oh, I gotta untape my wires. I'm not gonna do anything. All right, let's take this tape off. Got some residue on there, which you don't want if you're going to oxidize your wire, because it will create a problem. So I'm just getting that residue off with my fingernails. Okay, let's get my stone back in there. Is that my front? Yeah. You got to keep, remember, this is not a symmetrical stone. It's got all sorts of little dips and little valleys on it. So I am going to bend this wire out, and I'm going to bend this wire out. And then I'm going to put my stone back in. And this is a really good way to wrap any really uneven stone. So I want this to be up more. So I'm going to make my bend right about there. You can either mark it or eye it. I need to come this way and get in my best working position. Don't want it too long. And I'm just going to push it down. Let's take a look at that. That's going to be really good. So I want to rock this down just a little bit more. That's going to be good. And then I'm going to turn it in my best working position. And as before, I'm coming real close to where the wire is that I'm going to straighten out to the core wires. And I'm holding very firmly, and I'm just going to bend it up and just line it up with those wires. Let's see what we got going here. So I'm going to put my stone back in there. My sea glass that I keep calling a stone because I wrap 99.9% of the time gemstones. So that's going to work great. You're just going to have all these little beautiful little bends around the stone, just capturing it. So now I'm around the back, so I'm going to bend that down. And I'm going to want this one, I think, because it really dips down in there, right about there. I want it to really cover over the stone. This is not about perfection. This is about capturing this beautiful piece of sea glass and letting the sea glass, along with your incredible artistic creativity, really highlight that sea glass. So you're gonna start to feel how well you're gonna have more control over your stone. And you can see how these two wires here are gonna be lining up on the outside edge of, I hope to God I'm in camera because I can't see what I'm doing. And I wanted to capture more in the back to really secure it. So I'm just gonna push this up here to see how much I wanna squeeze this down. So I'm gonna push that in a little bit more because I want it to kind of line up with the other side. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I've done it in so many different ways. Just want to keep my flat side up. And I'm just getting that lined up with the other one. So let's get my stone in there. Oh yeah. That's working out beautiful. To see how I made this side bigger because it dipped in, so I needed more length to get this to tuck around the back side of that stone, and these are all going to be pushed in. You could wear it front or back. So let's go ahead and wrap this. Let me check all my wires again. They will have a tendency to lift up, which is why you don't want them cut really long. You don't want them flush at the end of your core wires. You want to cut them in the middle or a little bit shorter than middle. You want them to stay in place. This needs to be moved down. It's slid up. And they will do that. They'll slide, but once you get everything tied in, then you can just make little adjustments as you need. So now, I think this is my front. It is. I'm gonna wrap this. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'll be right back so we try not to take up a whole lot of time. Okay, so I finished wrapping and I actually added more wraps on this side just because I wanted to. I just do everything as I go. And now I'm gonna start squeezing these together on top. And I'm just kind of crossing them over a little bit, getting an idea. I'm going to start pinching them in. And I need to straighten these out up here so I have more control. So you can see me kind of swinging them out at the top here. So I have more control when I'm pinching them in. And you see how secure the stone is getting? Once I start my bail, I'm going to push these really down over the stone or the sea glass. I keep saying stone and it's a sea glass. It's a sea glass stone. So I'm just using my fingernail, then I'm turning around and I'm doing the same thing over here. I'm just rocking a little bit because I want to pinch it really, really close. Isn't that going to be cool? Of course, this is going to get pushed down over the stone. So there's different ways we can do this. So the easiest way is to take a back wire and wrap it around the front wires. That will be the easiest for a beginner. So I think we're going to do that. And I'm going to leave myself a little bit of gap space. Now, if you are a beginner, you're going to want to maybe tape your wires. So I'm going to cross over. First of all, I got to take my tape off. So I'm going to get my stone back in there. You can also tape the top, meaning the whole stone itself, all the way around to control it. Meaning just to keep your stone from moving around. Mine's not moving too much. I'm going to cross these over in the back. You want to make sure you keep your flat side up. So I'm crossing those over, leaving myself a little bit of a gap. Just want to square that up a little bit. Let's see. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire, now that they're crossed over, and I'm going to feed it through. So I'm scooping this wire up. I want to make sure my flat side is up. And I'm scooping it to give myself a head start. And then do you see in that cross right there? See that gap? I'm going to feed it through. You want to straighten that wire out in the back if you're a beginner. That's going to let you get control over it because it's naturally going to want to curl up. Now, I'm not going to pinch this off yet. I'm going to leave myself some gap until I get this side done. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to scoop it. I want to make sure my flat side is up. And if you find it difficult to hold on to everything, tape your stone. Okay. Want this on the edge. And I'm going to feed it through. Straighten that out. So let's see. Should have something like that. So it's going to look like this in the back. Do you see how we're crossing over? So you keep those separated out the back because we're going to tighten this down now. Be careful not to cross these wires over too tight. So you want to watch that. So I'm going to come on the inside now, and I need a different plier. I need one that's got a bigger jaw. It's going to take less of me having to support that wire. And then I'm going to come on the inside. You want to do this in little increments because you don't want to squeeze your remaining 3 wires down so tight that they cross over each other. Straightening that out in the back. You want to keep that wire straight in the back. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Make sure that they're centered up. They're just crossing over each other, front and back. And the straighter you keep this wire back here, the easier it will be for you. I want to make sure I don't cross these 3 over. So that looks pretty good. So let's spread these out. I want to see what's going on here. I want to see my work. Now I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those in the back because everything I do is freestyle. So I don't like this sticking out there, so I want to push it down. I may bring them back over again and do a decorative design. I'm not sure. Now, it's still not captured, but it's not going to fall out. It's loose until we start tightening everything down. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring these over to the front. Just getting my flat side up. And I'm going to bring this one over to the front. And this wire got a little bent here in the back. So I'm going to clean that up. And I'm going to lift it up a little bit. I want it higher on the neck. So I'm just going to leave these here for now until I decide on what I want to do with them. But I need to tighten that up. There we go. So we've got a couple of crisscrosses going on. There's the back, which could also be the front. And here's the front, which could also be the back. So now I'm going to get my bent nose, and there's two different kinds of bent nose, meaning some are thick-jawed and some are very thin-jawed. So you can see the difference in these. See how much thinner these are than these? They're a lot thicker. So I'm going to be using my thick ones. And I'm going to press these wires right here. These are my wires that are hugging the side of the stone. And I'm going to grab these two ends. So I'm resting on the tip of each of them. And I'm going to squeeze them very gently into the stone, into the sea glass. Just pushing them down on it. Made a little dent there, but that's okay. I will buff it out. Okay. Now I'm going to find my two side wires. I know there's a lot of light here, you guys. Is that any better? Not so much. Here we go, playing with the light again. That's, I think, a little bit better. So here's my two side wires. I'm following it up to where we're going to make our bail. And I'm going to pull on those a little bit and rock them when I'm nice and tight against my stone. And I'm just kind of bending that wire into that little dip of my stone. You have to work with your stone. You can do this with anything. It doesn't have to be sea glass. Just had this girl ask me if I would please do a tutorial on sea glass. So I'm going to push this down and I'm going to bend that in. This time I'm using the back of my plier and I'm bending this in. See how it's starting to hug my stone? It's really in there tight, and I haven't even done all four sides yet. So I just want to make sure this is pushed in the bottom really good as I rock this down. And then I'm going to push that in. That one's already down. Now you can actually take your wire and pull it, stretch it over the stone. That'll really make it super tight. So I'm just pushing it up. This one I'm going to rock over a little bit more. I'm standing up, you guys, again, because I really want to stay in frame. Want that kind of bending down towards the stone a little bit. And this one as well. I'm just stretching it. Did you see the wire? Oops, we got a blur there. Okay, let me do this again. Hopefully you'll, nope, it wants to blur. I don't know. I wonder if it's trying to focus on anything else here. I think it's the plier that makes it look really weird. So let me use a different plier. So I've got the wire here and I'm just stretching it more over my stone. Now I'm going to push it down. And hold on a minute, I got to go get my puppy. So you should be able, as you can see here, that my, I can't remember the name of these, loops, they go on faceted gemstones. They're not claws feet. This should be nice and tight against your stone. Now, you can leave the gap if you want, or you can push the gap into the stone. And I'm just rocking this with my plier, and I'm having to give it some good oomph. I personally want it into my stone. I want to follow the shape and all the little unique characteristics of this beautiful piece of sea glass. I just like that. To each his own. It's whatever your preference is. So, and I'm going to show you a cool trick here in a minute. So I'm rocking these in to that little dent in my stone here. I want it nice and tight. This baby's in there so tight, if it fell out, it would be a miracle. So I want to push this down a little bit more. So now I'm just using whatever I feel like. Making sure these are hugged in there really good, and they really are. Now you can also push this against your mat and then do the same thing on the other side. You can rock it a little bit, just making sure that you've really captured your stone. You don't want to be able to have any gap space. Push that in a little bit more. That's looking pretty good to me. So now I'm going to show you a little trick or technique. If you nick your wire, get a little piece of paper, like sticky note paper, and I use buffing blocks. I love them. I also use, if I can find it, I can't. Oh, here it is. Buffing pads. These are 1000 grit. These bend really easily, so if you need to get in specific areas. But because I'm working on the top, I'm just going to slip my paper in here so that I don't do anything to my stone. And I'm just going to go back and forth. And this is, I believe, 180? I don't remember. Yeah, 180. All the way around. It's the same grit all the way around. I don't buy fingernail buffers anymore. They don't last. I buy commercial grade, and I get them like 20 in a box. These are by whoever this guy is, or girl. So you can see it says 180 abrasive right there. And I'm just going to buff this, and it's going to soften the edge too, which I really like, to where you will not see one little tiny nick. You can do the same thing on copper. Now, if you're using tarnish resistant wire, forget it. You can't do that. I do not use that. I did when I started because that was recommended and I didn't know. And you make one nick on that and that's it. That undercoat or that top coat on the wire is going to come off and you're going to expose the bare copper underneath. So you can see here, all I'm doing is just going back and forth. Lots of tips and tricks I always want to give you guys so that you have more tools in your wire art mind. And I actually started doing this naturally because many, many years ago in my 20s, I'm not going to say how many, I did fingernails. I had a fingernail salon back in the day when we were using dental product. That ought to give you an idea how long I've been around. And we used buffers on everything, and that took me into a place of using it for a million different crafts. I've always been into crafts. I love creating things. So whatever was on there is completely gone. So now I'm going to do the back because I saw a couple areas here. And this guy needs to go down a little bit more. So I'm just going to rock this on there. It's going to take some muscle to do that. And silver's, interestingly enough, softer as far as the surface, not the wire. The wire hardens a lot faster, and it's not as flexible. But it's softer than copper when you're buffing, so your scratches come out really, really easy. I'm going to move this wire out of my way. perfect. Okay, I saw one more spot down here. It's just part of the art. Alrighty, I think that's good. So let's get busy on our bale. I'm not quite sure yet, you guys, what I'm going to do with these. But I just saw. There we go. Just want that to come down more. All right, I'm going to separate my wires and I'm going to create a bale. So where am I going to get the most? These, I don't know. Let me just get these all pulled out so I can see which ones I'm going to put where. And that is going to go here. And I think these I'm going to bring together into the middle. So instead of doing these, I'm going to push back in. Those were in the back. I'm lining up to see the way my wires are sitting. Yeah, that's much better. So these are going to go in the back. These are going to come in the front. So I might start weaving the front first. Let me turn this around. Always turn your work around. Want these to come center more. So I'm just manipulating my wires. These here. So these have got to go there more. It's going to be a rather wide bale because I'm changing my mind as I'm doing this. I keep seeing things. That's how it happens for me. Or do I want these? No. I kind of want to create something different here with the bale. And I want to bring in some sterling beads. Isn't that cool, you guys? I hope you like that. It's just a really cool concept. Now I'm going to be using my weaving wire. And I'm going to pull out 28 just to make it more cost effective versus cost prohibitive. And I'm going to do a 2-wire bale weave. So what is this? This is 28. And I'm going to do about 1.5 inch bale. So I'm going to cut myself 4 feet of wire. And then I'm going to cut that wire in half. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hopefully that'll be enough. If not, I will add. And this is how you buy your sterling, just like you do your copper. And it is 925 sterling silver wire from Rio Grande. I'm not promoting them. They're not the cheapest, but I haven't been able to find anybody with cheaper silver wire source. If you guys know of someone, please let me know. So now I'm just cutting my wire in half. I bent it in half and I'm cutting it in half. And I might bring in a 3rd wire. So I just recently did a tutorial called a 2-wire bale weave. And I'm trying to figure out what's holding my wire up here. Tape, which caused it to twist around each other. Okay, so I'm going to start the bale weave. And then I'm going to finish it off camera until I'm getting ready to wrap it around my stone. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I'm in focus here. I can see this is where I need to be. So I'm going to put a little piece of paper right here. That way I know that's where I need to stay. Scooch myself up, I think. Can you hear that nasty squeezy sound? And I'm going to take my wire underneath, and I'm not going to go through this in detail because I just did a tutorial on it. I'll go through just a couple rows. You need to watch the tutorial. It's my most recent one, and it says 2-wire bell weave. So I've wrapped around that once. I'm actually going to do it twice. And then I'm going to go over the top wire, which is my top number 1 wire. Then I'm going to go over the number 1 wire in between these 2 back wires. And it has everything to do with how you're set up. And I'm going to do a full rotation and push these down. Did I do that right? Because I need to come out the middle. I don't think I did that right, you guys. It's the way my wires are laying, it's confusing me. Over, there we go. Now I'm coming out the middle. I know what I did. I brought the wire around the back and it confused me. Now I'm going to get my second wire and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap twice on this one on the outside. There's 1 and 2. Then I'm going to go over my top wire all the way around it again, and I'm going to go in between these 2 top wires here. I'm coming around the second back wire and bringing it underneath this top wire to come up the top. So you should have 2 wires sticking out the top. Let's line these up a little bit better. And you know what? I wanted to bring a bead through. Dang. That means I'd have to start over. I might just attach it later. Wanted to start. You know what, you guys? I'm going to bring a bead through first. So give me a minute here because I'm going to be selling this. I'll be right back. So what I did is I just unraveled my wire back to where I had my wires on top to bring in a bead. So I am now going to continue that wrap and that I did before. And I'm coming up through the middle. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. And I will go, you can do any kind of weaving that you want. And I'm coming back through the middle. So I have 2 wires coming out the middle. I do encourage you to, if you want to learn this technique. It's like a figure 8, but it sure does keep your wires from sliding. And you want to keep your flat side up. So I'm just twisting this in the opposite direction that it was twisting. So now I'm on top. I'm going to come back up underneath. And I'm going to come underneath both these wires. So this is wire 1, 2, and 3. And I was on top. I went back over wire 3. And then I'm going to come up underneath both of these. And I'm going to wrap around wire 1 once, over wire 1 and 2, in between wire 1 and 2, over wire 2. Is that right? Sorry, you guys. I'm doing things a little bit different here because then I'm going to come back around. Yeah. Then underneath wire 3, all the way around wire 3, and then back up through the middle. So my wire is coming out the top. I know that silver wire is very, very reflective. So I'm going to go over, consider these 1, 2, and 3, over wire 2, in between 2 and 3, over wire 3, in between Oh God, I got these all confused. In between the two outside ones, and I just spilled my beads. I'm having a heck of a day. It probably should be a Monday for me. Then I'm coming back up in between, going over this wire. Oops, wrong way. In between. I do this all the time, but for some reason today, I'm having a bit of a brain fart. It happens. So I'm just going to push these down. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to weave up to about a little bit over the inch mark. And I'll be right back because we are an hour and, what are we, an hour and 10 minutes in? Be right back. Okay, so I finished my bail, and I want to show you a really cool technique to create dimension in your bail. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself a dental tool. You can use anything sharp and thin. And I love this. I just figured this out several years ago. I didn't like the way figure weaves really looked overall. So what I'm doing, and I'm going to show you in the air now, is I am pushing down on these wires. So I'm going to straighten that one up in the middle, and it creates almost like 3-dimension. I'm really pushing them in, and I go through this with my 2-wire bail weave, which is what I did on this. I just drew a blank, you guys, when I was doing it, and I realized I was doing it wrong. So without wasting a lot of time, I went off camera and fixed my little errors. So I'm just pressing down on it. Isn't that cool? Now for more effect, and I'll show you what we're going to do here in a minute. We're going to make our bail. I'm going to bring the neck forward, so it should look something like this. And then I use my fingers, and I'm going to bend, holding my pendant very firmly right at the middle. And then I'm going to pitch my legs in. I'm pushing with my thumb, and I'm going to bring that bail forward. Isn't that pretty? Now watch what happens when I press on these wires even more. I'm going to really start rocking them in. And it creates almost like a bow tie effect. And it really gives it a lot of dimension. And this is how you can also, if you messed up with your weaving wire doing a figure 8, this is also how you can hide that. But anyways, isn't that cool? I love that technique. I didn't learn it from anybody. Even it doesn't matter. I just was playing around with the wire. This is when I started out at first and having a really hard time with figure 8. And I said, I'm going to smash that wire in. And I liked it so much, so I decided to share it this year. Okay, so now what are we going to do? I haven't decided on these front ones. I may do something swirly and follow this pattern here. Here, I think I am going to start on the front. So I'm going to move this wire out of the way. And I'm going to start doing the same thing with this here. And I'm going to swing it all the way over. And I'm just going to follow my lines. And if you're working with square wire, remember to keep that flat side up. And then I'm going to follow this line. So I'm going to really flip that up. Sometimes we need to go way, way, way in the, and I need to cut that wire there. I just saw a loose wire. In the opposite direction of where we want to go to get the right shape on the wire. Now you can use a tool or you can just follow. And my square wire wants to twist, so I'm going to use my tool. I'm just going to follow that right there. I'm going to stop there. And I'm going to bring this wire out. And I need to keep my flat side up. And remember, none of this is symmetrical. So, and just use your creativity, you know, whatever you want to do. I'm just seeing things and then I do them. So I'm going to bring that down. So here's where we're at in the front, because I need room to bring these two middle wires in the back. So I'm going to lift up on my bail, and I'm going to finish off this wire here with 3 wraps, and I'm going to cut it off. And I'm really going to cinch that in. So I'm going to lift my wires back up. I'm going to move these 2 outside ones out of my way. So don't be afraid to move your wires around. I'm going to lift my bail back up. There are different ways to do this, but you can actually get your wires pre-bent. And I want these the same length, so they both go through at the same time. And I'm just tucking them. I'm using my fingers a lot so that I can line them up in that hole and push them through. And it might hop, one side might hop over the stone. You might have to do them separately. And I got a loose wire here. I may be able to use that for a bead. Nope. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. Getting a lot of glare with this sterling. Now I should be able to pull very gently on one side of the stone and the other. There we go. I felt that one finally slip through. There we go. So I'm going to wrap these in between that gap I had on those 2 wires there. And I'm going to push my bail through a little bit more. Keep my flat side up. And I'm going to connect these wires in the back around these 2 outside wires here. So I'm going to pre-shape my wire, meaning I'm curling it because I'm telling it where I want it to go. And I'm going to tuck it under. Kind of getting a bend on that I don't like there. These 2. And just keep moving your wire around in your best working position. I need a different plier. Sometimes a wider jaw plier is better than working with a very petite nose plier. You don't have to use as much pressure and you have more control over your wire. Now I want these in the back. So I'm holding my 2 wires down with my thumb here. And I'm going to pull this wire up again. There's a lot more slack in there as I begin to push it through. And it looks like I have just the right amount of length. But I'm not going to totally close it off yet until I do this side. And I am definitely going to oxidize this piece. So let me pre-shape that even more so that it curls through. Standing up, can you tell? My pink shorts. Okay, getting in a better working position. Now I'm going to really push these wires down around the back. Want them down over here. So I'm going to hold them against my stone. And I'm not liking the way that's riding up. Just need to flatten it down a little bit. There we go. And it's got to go up a little bit higher. They got to be the same. Much better. Just little adjustments. That's what's so amazing about this ancient art. You're constantly making little adjustments. Now I'm going to tuck this wire over and in. And you can do your bell any way you want. This is just what came up for me, so I decided to do it this way. Okay, so that's what we got going on in the back. Sorry about all the reflection, but hey, doing the best that I can. I'm not sure what I want to do with these tail ends yet. I may just bring them up and inside the bail, but I want to focus on these. So I want to open up my bail a little bit. Isn't that cool? I love that effect. Okay, so I'm going to connect these here. This is really long, you guys. This is going to be about an hour and 45. Oh, well, it's teaching. So I'm going to get myself some 28 gauge weaving wire, and I am going to wrap around, I'll lift this up a little bit, wrap around the end. Do 2 wraps. I'm going to slide it up and I'm going to connect it. And I knew I had that down pretty tight, but there was just enough of an opening gap to where I could tie it off. Okay, I got to sit down again. I know it's better if I'm standing up, at least it seems it is. Then I'm going to wrap through 2 times. I'm going to cinch those down really tight while I'm pushing that up against my stone. And then I'm going to do 2 wraps there. Is that full 2 wraps on this side? It is not. I'm going to have to tuck this wire under. Thought I had 2 full wraps, but I didn't. There we go. Now I'm going to really cinch that in there and cut her off. So I'm going to do the other side and I'll be right back so we can finish off with the decorative stuff. Okay, so I finished connecting. I'm not sure what I want to do here because, as you all know, if you've been watching me for a while, I just wrap as I go. So I'm going to come around the back here, and I'm thinking about either just rolling these up since they're connected. I really don't want to cover the back anymore. But I'm also thinking about covering just the top here. So I could come this way and just make a loop. So I want my flat side up. Just scratch my wire pretty good. I'll fix that with my drill. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this. I don't know what's going on with all the blur. And that's a little long. And let's see if this works, what I'm thinking of. Just kind of want to cover this tip here. I'm going to cut that. I'll Dremel those little nicks out. Yeah, I like that. It's closing off that. It's protecting the tip of that stone. I'm going to swing this around. I think it's the silver that's creating so much blur. And I'm going to set myself up so I can get right in there and just turn this in and cut it. Oh, that's just horrible the way. Oh well, you guys, I'm doing the best I can. I may not have enough room, but I do. So that kind of closes off the top of this stone. If you had a lot of opening up here and you felt like the stone was pushing back, and that's, you know, just something that you do as you go. You just modify and make corrections as you're going. Now these, I think I'm going to bring them up and I'm going to wrap them, I think, inside. Or do I just want to bring them through? Or do I just want to make a loop out of them? This one I'm going to need to fix. It's a little long. But I'll do that later. Could make a little loop right here. Bring this one up. Not quite sure I like that. I may just bring them to the back and tuck them in. I think I'm going to do that. So all I'm going to do is just swing my wire back out. And do the same thing here. And I think here's some half round sticking up. I think I'm just going to tuck it in here. Yeah. Because we're not going to be using the back. But before we do that, this is bugging the dickens out of me, both of these. I want to make some corrections on this one. Okay, I'm happier with that, and I'll get my Dremel in there and clean up those scratches. So, back to the bale. I'm just gonna do something decorative here, and you guys do whatever you feel like you need to do, and I'll be right back. So after some consideration, I decided that I would twist my wire. So I straightened them out and twisted them, and I'm going to bring them up. So you're going to have something like this if you haven't already created something else. It's just all freestyle. That's pretty much how I work. And then I'm going to follow the outside curve here. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, so I twisted my wires and I'm following the outside curve here. I'm going to connect these at the top and I will be right back. So what I did is, and it's so hard to see this silver, is I connected these on the sides up here where I brought in the twisted wire. I brought the twisted wire around the back. I tucked them up underneath these wires, and if you have to, just lift up on those wires to get up underneath them. And then all I'm going to do is lock them in. So I'm just going to cut them. And I just don't know what's up with this light. And I'm going to turn it in. And I need a different plier to itself and tuck it away. And then I'm going to pull this wire back down on the stone and push it down because I lifted it up. I need to take this excess off. So I'm just going to do a wiggle, jiggle, and snap it off. Okay. And the same thing over here. Just want to make sure they're looking kosher here. I'm trying to do a little symmetry, but it's not going to be completely possible because the stone is not symmetrical. It's asymmetrical. So I'm going to cut this off. I'm actually going to bring it around a little bit more. Let's take some of this length off so I can work with it better. Still too long. Going to tuck it in to itself. Then I'm going to lift up on this wire because it kind of moved it out of the way. And I'm going to push it down. So that's what we got. So now we're going to mess with these in the front. And I think what I'm just going to do is make some kind of pretty loop. So I'm going to follow this curve again. And I need to keep my flat side. I can see that my wire turned. All I'm doing right now is straightening it out, holding it flush against this stone here. I'm going to straighten that out a little bit. Got a little twisted on me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to straighten this wire out. Because that was really bothering me. And before I get any further, I'm going to buff out that neck. Soften that edge. Remember, the shape is very different all over the stone. So, but it's going to look really good once it's oxidized. That's going to make a whole lot of difference because the stone, this sea glass, is so light. It's just this soft, soft aqua. That's my dog. Let's see, I'm going to need to connect them right here. So I'm going to connect them here before I make my swirl, and I'll be right back. Okay, so what I did is I just, and I know it's really hard to see in this light, I connected, so as you know, I connected up here when I first brought these two wires together. And then I brought this down to start a loop, and before I completed my loop, I connected my wires with my 26 gauge weaving wire to this top frame here. And I just lifted up on it. And then, excuse me, you guys, I'm still getting over this cold. I pushed it back down. And I'm just going to buff this. And I'll be getting my other buffing pads to this as well. So this one, I'm thinking about bringing it up and circling it back down. I don't want it to be just so perfect. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you need to go far in the opposite direction to get the wire where you want it to go. So I'm going to lift up on this wire a little bit. And I'm going to soften that edge by smashing it. So I'm curling off the tip. It's this kind of motion, and I wish I could show it to you better, but it is what it is, right? So I'm just softening up that tip so it's not a blunt square end. And do you hear me snapping off that wire? My plier, because I'm putting pressure on it. Then I'm going to make a loop down towards the bottom. I just kind of want to change it up a little bit. I don't want it all to look the same. And now I'm going to get my other pliers because I've already got the loop I want. And I don't want to really bite into this wire. And round nose are wonderful for that. So just to give it some different dimension and design, personally, I like that. So I am going to connect this loop down here because to me, it shouldn't be that much wire on a stone without somehow being connected. So I'm going to turn it in just a little bit more and swing it back. You see now why I brought the wire so far back, and now I'm going to push it down. Really close to the frame. So I'm going to bring a wire in here and connect it off, and we'll be done. So this is what we've got going on. This is our back. There's so many different ways, you guys. I mean, use your imagination. But this little gal is locked in here, and I will be posting it finished as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this off, and I want to thank you all for being a wonderful part of this magical ancient art of wire. I wish for all of you all that you wish for yourselves. May you have a wonderful, magical wire wrap day. Bye for now.